Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today I want to talk about red flags, and more importantly, not red flags just when you're about to break up, but red flags when you first start dating someone. A lot of you are getting out of relationships and you're starting to date again, and you're saying, oh my God, you know what happened? Red flag. So, before I get into this video, if you like the video, throw me a thumbs up. If you don't like it, put a thumbs down. If you have some comments to share about your own red flags that you've had dating or in relationships, please put them in the comments below. And if you'd like to subscribe, press that red button. So, let's get into it, because I think this is a very useful and interesting topic video. I haven't done a lot of topic videos recently, but I think they're useful. And I'm going to share some stories of my own life that were from a long time ago. So let's talk about this, spotting early red flags. So when you start dating someone, or you're in the first 6 months or a year, a lot of times people go, hindsight, that should have been a red flag when they're telling me their story. And a lot of times these red flags aren't going away. You think like, oh, they just were like that one time, or that was kind of strange, but actually they're telling you who they are. So if you get too many of these quote unquote red flags, or whatever you want to call it, or gut feelings like that didn't feel right, then it's probably time to stop dating. So I'm going to share this with you guys. This is a pretty good story, actually, that I haven't revisited in a long time. But I was about 20 or 21 years old, so a long, long time ago, 18 years ago if I was 20. I think I was 20, yeah. And I was in college. I would guess it's full to part-time job. I was working 32 hours a week, 4 days a week, full-time school. I was busy. And there was a girl I was talking to, and this is right when the internet was getting popular with instant messaging, AOL. If people remember when you'd connect online. And there was a girl that we didn't go to high school together, but we had the same group of friends, and we started talking online after she went back to college, and she went to a college in New York. And so she was on the East Coast, I was in the Bay Area, San Francisco area. And while this was the first time I had, like you had instant messaging, this was before texting. This is how old I am. And so we'd meet up like at 8 p.m. or 9 o'clock, and we'd have these chats online, because this is still when you had long distance calls were expensive, and it was fun. We talked for an hour and a half. We built some tension, and eventually she was like, "Why don't you come visit me? Come stay with me for a week or 2 weeks." And I'd never been to New York, so I was like, "Fuck yeah, I'll go." So I booked the trip, and I was actually we weren't serious or anything. We were just talking online, and it was playful. It was fun. It wasn't serious at all. But I went over there, and at the time I was actually just starting to date another girl that I worked with. So I went over there with no serious expectations or anything like that, but I was going to be staying with her. So we were just going to have a good time. She was going to show me around, show me the city, and I was going to stay at her place. So I stayed at her place, and first night was all right. The next morning, I woke up, and I washed a glass, literally a glass. I washed it, and she went off on me that I didn't use soap, and I didn't scrub it right, and I didn't do this, and I was kind of caught off guard. I was like, whoa, where did that come from, I'm just staying there the first night. We had never lived together or anything like that. So this was kind of a lesson in, you don't know someone until you spend 24 hours or 48 hours with them too. That's another thing. That's why I always tell people in relationships, if you haven't lived with someone, it's a different ball game. So she went off on me on that. I left. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I went and got some milk or something like that for my coffee. I forgot what it was. Came back. She was okay. She was kind of being short with me. I've only been there like 24 hours. The first night was great. So then after that, it was kind of like this haze on the week. Went to meet friends with her. We had a couple little small things after that. And then we were hanging out in bed, and we were kind of cuddling and whatnot and flirting. And she had a hamster. And she like, oh, you want to see my hamster? And I'm like, no, I don't really want the hamster in bed, Like, I was uncomfortable with it. I was like, I don't want to play with the hamster right now. Oh, no, she takes it out, and she's just like, and he bites sometimes, but it won't, it'll just give you a little, like just a little cut. It won't. I'm like, I don't want to play with the hamster. No, I'm not interested. And it was like, no, takes it out, lets it go on the bed. And I was just like, all right, I don't want to hold the hamster that bites right now. Da-da-da. She gets pissed off again, just starts petting her hamster, crying. Just like, whoa, where did this come from? Seriously erratic. Starts sharing with me that she has all these family problems, and her dad moved away when she was young, and she never gets to talk to her dad. And I was just like, wow, where's this coming from? And the truth of the matter is, I just didn't know her that well before I went to go stay with her, right? I didn't know her being around her for 24 hours. I knew her when we'd have a friendly chat online and flirt sometimes, but I didn't know her to stay at her house, and it was just a different ball game. So those were 2 red flags. Then we went out and we were in a mall, and we weren't really getting along. It was really awkward. She had been upset with me about a couple things. Like I said, those things, and I could tell she was carrying them. And she went up to some guy that worked at a shoe store and that she knew, and proceeded to talk to him, didn't introduce me, talked to him for like 25 minutes like I wasn't there. It was extremely awkward at the time. I mean, if that was me now, I would have just walked away. I wouldn't even have partaked. And the guy was kind of looking at me like, who's this guy? And she was like flirting with him lightly, and she was being mean. I mean, I think she was going out of her way to make me feel uncomfortable. I don't know. So that was like red flag number 3. So at this point, I had another friend that went to, I believe it was Seton Hall. And if I'm correct, Seton Hall's in New Jersey. And we were really good friends in high school, and she was a female, and we flirted sometimes, but we hadn't hooked up or anything like that. But we were good friends, and she's like, oh my God, you're not so far away. Come visit me. You can stay with me. So I was like talking to her on the phone, and I was out in the hallway from the other girl's apartment. And I was like, it just hasn't been good. We haven't been getting along, and I was keeping my voice down, told a couple stories. This girl comes running out, screaming at me, hyperventilating. Get the hell out of my house. You're talking about me. Da, 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 da. And I'm going, okay, calm down. I'm sorry. You know what? I was just talking to my friend. She lives over here. She's not far away. She said maybe I can come stay over there. We weren't getting along, and she's just on the ground crying. So at this point, I just, put my hand on her shoulder and just calmed her down. I hadn't been in a situation like this. So this is a red flag, but at the same time, I really care. And I mean, so after that, we went on a walk, and we're not even together. That's the crazy thing. This isn't my girlfriend. This is someone that I knew from some other friends. We had seen each other at get-togethers. We had talked a few times, and it just went straight into craziness. And then we went for a walk, and we stopped at a park bench, and she's just crying hysterically, saying, I'm so sorry I've been so mean to you. I'm so mean to you. I don't know why I'm so mean to you. And there's people walking by looking at me like, what an asshole, man. I was just so uncomfortable, right? I went home, and I had no problem cutting off all contact. And someone might go like, well, she didn't... because there was just in 1 week, the red flags that were there, I had no interest in pursuing that again. I didn't feel like I was being an asshole. I didn't feel like anything I did during that trip was wrong, like washing the glass wrong, or not being up for the hamster to be hanging out with us in bed, or talking to my friend out in the hallway about maybe visiting her and what was going on. It's just, I didn't feel guilty at all. I didn't feel like I had to compensate for that. And I was well okay with, we don't need to talk again. You live on the East Coast. And I came across her path a few times years later against mixed friends and stuff like that. And we weren't cold to each other, but we weren't very friendly. And I was just okay with it. I was like, it's fine. We're done. And there was enough red flags in that moment for me to just go, done. Now, some people will be like, wow, that's a lot. I mean, but there's some people that are sending me their stories with similar stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, I should have known. But some people can manipulate you into being the guilty one. So a couple of those instances, like getting mad at me for not washing a glass correct, I didn't bite. I was like, that's how I wash glasses, Never had a problem, never got sick. I don't really care for hamsters that bite. being loose in the bed. So I didn't really feel like I needed to say sorry about that. Talking to a friend outside her door about visiting her, maybe I was out of line to talk about, you know, what had gone on, but I had every right to have a private conversation. So what I'm saying is, what happens with a person that has these quote unquote red flags, they can very easily make you feel guilty for something that you don't really feel guilty for, or you didn't really do wrong. It's just a difference in opinion, like washing glasses. So let me go on to the next story. Tell me if you had some crazy shit like that. And I remember I came home and friends were like, oh, did you hook up with so-and-so? And I was like, no, it was a really bad trip, actually. And I'm glad we didn't, and I'm glad we're not going to move forward, because it was, you know, I saw some things about her personality and who she was that weren't going to vibe with me. And I wasn't up for that at that point. So another red flag story, and this is kind of smaller. I was also, I think, in my early 20s, 20, 21. At the time I was single, so I was dating and seeing different women. And this girl, I worked with her. I could tell she liked me. She had asked me out to lunch, actually, a couple times. And we went out, and she was cool. I thought she was cute. And I took her to some place called Fridays, if people know what that is. It's, what's that? What would you consider it, like a 3-star restaurant? It's not expensive, but for someone of my age and the money I was making on my part-time job while I was a student, it was, I could pay for it, but I was going to appreciate it when I was there. So I took her out there, and we got some food, and I think she got some kind of fettuccine. Don't ask me how I remember that. I have a great memory sometimes. And so she got that. She ate like 2 bites. We had an okay conversation. I was kind of shocked that she only had 2 bites. I had my food. I forgot what my food was. And then she said, yeah, I'm done, and had the waiter take it away. And I was like, you're not taking that home? No, I don't want it. That was a huge red flag for me. Someone that I think I was making like $7 an hour when I was 20 at a retail store. I was making not very much money, and I was in college, and I was thinking to myself, like, no. I was always taught you take your leftovers home, you don't waste food, even if you want to give them to your dog or something. But that really upset me, and I swear I didn't want to go out with her afterwards. That pissed me off. That was a huge red flag for me. Tell me if anyone's had that before in the comments, where you went out with someone, they ate 2 bites of their food, and they just left it, and it bugged you that they didn't take it home. Because there's some people I know that are like, I don't eat leftovers. I never have. They just don't eat them. I have a friend now that will go to an upscale restaurant, and we'll go out to eat, and he'll just have his food thrown out. And sometimes I'm like, you don't want that? I'll take it. I'll take it home. I don't know if that was ingrained in me as a kid because we always had leftovers, but red flag for me. So moving forward, it gets better. So after that, we worked together, me and this girl. So she proceeded to, come on, let's go out again. Can you meet me for a walk over here by my house? And there was like a park that had like a marsh and some other things. And so I'm like, all right, fine, I'll meet you over there. So I meet her over there. And she had an ex-boyfriend that she had been together for like 3 years, and the guy was older. Like I said, I was 20 or 21, and she was early 20s also. And the guy was older, late 20s, pretty big guy. And they had been together for 2, 3, 4 years. It was a long relationship. And the guy was coming around work, like not stalking, but like showing up, trying to get back, So I meet up with her. We go for a walk. We had a kiss, and I still wasn't really into it. And afterwards, she calls me up, and she's like, oh, did so-and-so say anything to you? And I'm like, what? Who's that? And she's like, oh, my ex-boyfriend was watching us from his car. Red flag. If you want a fucking bright, huge red flag, I was like, I'm done. And she was like, no, it's not a big deal. He came up to me afterwards, and he was watching us the whole time. And, I just don't want him to hurt you or anything like that. And I was like, A, I'm not even into this girl that much. B, I'm not getting in a fight over it. Just went out with her a couple times casually. The thing was still bothering me about the restaurant. I mean, it was just like, yeah, okay, no, I'm not in. And flashing through my head was like, these America's Most Wanted stories where like, the girl starts dating some other guy and the guy shoots him or stabs him or something. And I was only like 20 years old. I'm seeing other women and stuff. So it wasn't a big deal to me to just move on. And I could tell she kind of was like into the drama of it. And I was a little bit scared afterwards, I'm going to be honest. So I just cut the date. I was like, look, I'm not up for that. If your boyfriend's making you uncomfortable, you should go to the police and file a report or something like that. But I don't want to be a part of this anymore. And it drove her nuts. I mean, afterwards, she'd always be like, I need a ride home from work. I need this. I need that. She was really, really pursuing me even harder, which I just wasn't going to be a part of that, because those red flags for me, the restaurant one doesn't seem like much, but it really did piss me off. But the second one, when she told me that there was her ex-boyfriend watching us, now some people are like, oh, like, I would have stepped up to him, or I was like, no, I don't know their story. I don't know how they broke up, but I wasn't going to be used as a pawn in the game of jealousy. So I just bowed out quickly on that one. Like I said, she was cute. I was attracted to her. She obviously liked me in some ways. And I was just like, done. So there's certain red flags that you see them and you go, I'm done. And I think that when you're in a position, I was in my early 20s, and I'd say I'm the same way now. When you got a level of confidence in who you are and what you can do, that you can pivot and date someone else that doesn't have those issues, that's not going to create those problems. So I got one more story, and this one was basically in my late 20s. I was dating this woman that was a nurse. She was very good looking, very sweet, very kind. We hung out a couple of times. And she had told me the first few times we hung out and we were kissing and we were, getting intimate. And she was like, I don't want to love you. I don't want to love you. And I was like, what do you mean? We're just having fun, Like, she's like, because if we hook up, if we sleep together, I'm going to love you. And I didn't think anything of it. We eventually hooked up, went out a few more times, and she did change instantly. It's like she cleaned up the whole house. She kind of had this psycho twinkle in her eyes where she was like this when she's talking to you, staring through me. And it was like she loved me too much. It was uncomfortable. And let me know in the comments if you've had one of these before. Some people might call it a clinger. And she was really sweet and kind, but it was just like too much, too quick, too often. Too much of hey, how are you doing, with this crazy face. And then she'd buy me like bears and gifts. Really, really juvenile types things when we're in our late 20s, like, oh, I got you this bear when I was on my trip. And eventually I was like, this is uncomfortable. I'm really attracted to her, but I don't like hanging out with her because it just seems like she doesn't have her own opinion and she's too vested into the relationship. So I cut it off. I stopped hanging out with her, and she'd call me off the hook, psycho style. And then I was in a pub with my friend, like a bar pub, like a nice place. She shows up, whacks me softly with her purse. When I say softly, I didn't get hurt, but like in front of everyone. It's like, you told me that that you weren't going somewhere today. I think I texted her back, yeah, no, I'm not available or something. So I went out with my friend. I just kind of played it off. That was an ultimate red flag. I've never been hit before. And I didn't do anything wrong. So I didn't feel like, oh, I'm sorry or this or that, because we were in a relationship for a month or 2 months. And in my head, I was thinking, we're not serious here. So I moved on from that. She said that I lied to her, that I didn't care about her. That wasn't true. I just wasn't up with the red flags. Like I said, she had that little twinkle in her eyes of seriousness, and the bears that she got me, and then showing up somewhere when I told her I was busy and didn't give her details, and actually whacked me on the head with her purse. Those were red flags. I never had that relationship. Where I'm going with all this is, when you see those red flags up front, just be done, okay? And a lot of times when you get out of a breakup, the first rebound relationship you get into, you put up with a lot of shit you normally wouldn't put up with because you're lonely. But when those come up and they're big, say to yourself, all right, that's it. I'm done. That's one I'm not going to negotiate on. So if you got some ones in the comments about red flags that have happened to you out there, please put them down below. Thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting the channel.